So what did you make of the Prime Minister's speech?
The only reaction that came to me was this is colossal bullshit, the claim that Australia is doing enough on climate change. And I'm sorry to use crude language, but I couldn't think of a fairer term.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And criticism of our politicians does not get much blunter than that. Or at least not from organisations set up to champion science. So, what did Scott Morrison say that got the Climate Council's CEO, Amanda Mackenzie, so riled up? It was this claim that Australia is doing a fine job in the fight against global warming, but getting no credit for its work.
Australia's internal, though, and global critics on climate change willingly overlook or perhaps ignore our achievements, as the facts simply don't fit the narrative they wish to project about our contribution. Australia is responsible for just 1.3% of global emissions. Australia is doing our bit on climate change, and we reject any suggestion to the contrary.
Ahead of his speech to the UN, as Greta Thunberg's rebuke to global leaders hogged the headlines, the PM was telling reporters in New York that he believes media lies may be to blame for his government's bad rap on global warming.
What I've found in engaging with neighbours, and even here, is oftentimes the criticisms that have been made about Australia are completely false and they're completely misleading. And people have had a prejudiced view about what Australia is actually doing. You know, they get their information now. Where do they get their own information from? Who knows? Maybe they read it. Maybe they read it. But from what's come out in the media and other things like this, or how they get the information, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is when I've spoken to them, they've been surprised to learn about the facts about what Australia has been doing.
Cue for some in the media to fact-check the PM's claims. And for the Climate Council's Professor Leslie Hughes to press home her CEO's attack by going on ABC Radio to give the government's record another massive fail.
We remain probably the highest per capita emitter of any developed countries, even higher than Saudi Arabia. And so that fall in per capita emissions, which has been rather slight, is mainly due not to government action, but because we've got more people. So it's not hard to overachieve on really dismal targets. And the fact is that our emissions continue to rise.
Now, some will claim the Climate Council is an activist group, distinguished scientists though they are, who would naturally be critical of government efforts. So, we decided to contact some leading Australian climate experts for their verdict on the PM's charge. Associate Professor Malte Meinshausen is from the Climate and Energy College at the University of Melbourne. Professor Frank Iozzo is Director of the Centre for Climate and Energy Policy at the ANU. Bill Hare is a founder and CEO of Climate Analytics in Perth. Professor Stephen Sherwood is from the Climate Change Research Centre at the University of New South Wales. And the ANU's Associate Professor Neroli Abraham was a lead author on last week's IPCC report. A more distinguished panel would be hard to find. And we asked them all, is Australia doing enough to combat global warming, as the PM maintains? And they answered...
No.
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 We then asked them, is the media's reporting on global warming and the government's climate policies false or misleading? And they answered...
No.
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 Not systematically.
I can't give a simple yes or no.
And finally we asked them, is the PM right to blame the media for creating an impression that Australia is not doing enough? And they told us...
No.
So, pretty much a unanimous verdict on all three questions. We also asked those climate experts for comments, which you can read in full on our website. But on the specific question of media reporting of climate change, Neroli Abraham told us...
Some parts of the media do a very good job of reporting on global warming. Others do not.
While Bill Hare made that more specific, telling Media Watch...
The reporting in the ABC, Guardian and former Fairfax Press is generally accurate and non-ideological.
And Professor Meinshausen finished it off by observing more pointedly that the
Murdoch press and some radio stations are often willfully misleading, but not in the direction that Scott Morrison suggested.
And finally, the Science Media Centre, whom we also consulted, and which specialises in proper reporting of science, observed...
The major issue is with opinion leaders who use the media to undermine the science. Blaming the media is akin to shooting the messenger.
So, if anyone is being misleading here, it seems to be the Prime Minister, who, as Janine Perrott observed on Sky, may have picked up a few tips at the White House from his American counterpart.
What I found interesting was the blaming the Australian media. I think he's had a good week with Donald Trump. Blame the media, fake news, there it is.
And we did ask the Prime Minister's office to point us to any media stories they considered unfair or misleading, but they did not respond.